shown in this close-up image. Also, make sure that the Kevlar extends approximately 10 millimeters from the end of the cable's brown jacket as shown. The next step in the process is stripping the jacket and acrylic coating from the optical fiber at the core of the cable assembly. Using the fiber stripping tool of your choice, strip off the jacket from the optical fiber down to the 10 millimeter mark. Take off the jacket in small pieces to prevent fiber breakage. We're doing it in 4 increments here. Place the finished cable on the template and verify that all of the cable measurements approximately agree with those shown on the diagram as illustrated in this close-up. Before proceeding, inspect the fiber to make sure that all of the acrylic coating has been removed. This fiber close-up shows some coating at the fiber end. There could also be some coating left on the fiber where it exits its jacketing as shown here. In either case, the fiber won't fit in the ferrule, and so it's necessary to use a stripping tool on just the fiber until all of the coating is gone, as illustrated in this last close-up. Sometimes the remaining coating can be removed using a fiber wipe and cleaning fluid. In the next series of steps, the fiber will be inserted and fixed into the ferrule, and the cable will be crimped to the connector to mechanically secure the assembly. The first step here is to prepare the syringe by injecting a small amount of Loctite 680 retaining compound into it. Open the red Loctite bottle and squeeze it gently so that a sufficient amount of the compound flows into the open end of the syringe. Then insert the plunger into the syringe and depress it until the fluid exits the needle. Remove the protective cap from the connector body and insert the syringe needle into it. While observing the ferrule tip, depress the plunger until a small droplet of the green compound appears on the tip, as shown in this close-up. Retract the needle from the connector body and make sure that the retaining compound is visible inside the connector, as shown in this close-up. However, it is best that the compound does not protrude from the body, as shown in this close-up, because it may complicate the next step if the accelerator hardens the excess retaining compound. Temporarily set the connector body aside and apply some of the connector cleaner to a fiber wipe in preparation for cleaning the fiber. Fold the wipe in half over the dampened part, and while holding it in one hand, pick up the fiber with the other and pull the glass through the wipe several times while squeezing it. Without putting down the fiber, open the Loctite 7090 activator and dip the glass fiber into it. Try not to get any activator on the Kevlar since it may harden when it contacts the retaining compound in the connector body. Slide the crimp ring to within about an inch of the edge of the brown cable jacket and then pick up the connector body with your other hand. Insert the fiber into the body and with a continuous and smooth motion slide the fiber through the ferrule until it bottoms out. At this point, the crimp ring may be slid up the cable until it contacts the connector body. Alternately, you can wait for the fiber to cure before sliding the crimp ring. In either case, hold the assembly in a stable position for about 10 seconds to allow the retaining compound to cure. Note that if the fiber motion through the ferrule is too slow or is allowed to stop, the retaining compound may cure in such a way that prevents the fiber from bottoming out. If this happens, the connector must be cut off and discarded. Next, using the .178 notch on the crimp tool, insert the wide portion of the crimp ring into that notch and bring the connector body flush to the tool. Close the tool on the connector and squeeze until the tool bottoms out and releases tension. Then, using the tool's .151 notch, insert the short, narrow portion of the crimp ring into that notch and bring the edge of the first crimp flush to the tool. Close the tool on the connector and squeeze until the tool bottoms out and releases tension on the connector body. Finally, Slide the black rubber boot up the cable until it contacts the connector body. Et voila! We've successfully secured the fiber into the connector. As a final note, remember that throughout this part of the process, there's a glass fiber protruding from the ferrule. Be careful not to break the fiber or injure yourself with it. The next step is to cleanly remove the glass fiber that is protruding from the connector ferrule. This step is called cleaving, and it must be done with great care so that the fiber end is not irreparably shattered during the process. Before cleaving the fiber, carefully use a fiber wipe to remove the excess uncured retaining compound from the fiber end. The fiber is very fragile, so be careful not to exert too much pressure with the wipe. Remove the protective cover from the scribe and note that the blade has a flat edge and a beveled edge as seen in this close-up. Be sure to place the flat blade edge on the flat portion of the ferrule tip as shown. While putting minimal pressure on the fiber, draw the blade once or twice across it without breaking it. Clean any retaining compound from the blade and replace its protective cover. Now gently grab the fiber between your fingers and pull it straight up to remove it from the ferrule. The fiber must be disposed of safely, and one way to do this is to attach it to the sticky side of a piece of electrical tape that has been previously prepared with its sticky side out. There are two phases to ferrule polishing, starting with the rough polish. When the fiber has been properly cleaved, there should be a small stub of glass protruding from the ferrule tip. The objective of rough polishing is to remove that stub such that the glass is even with the ferrule end face. We'll use the brown 5 micron grit film for rough polishing. Hold the film in one hand and place the ferrule tip on it approximately 2 inches away from your thumb. Move the ferrule back and forth using a figure 8 pattern, repeating that pattern about 20 times. It's advisable to use the fiber scope to examine the ferrule tip to make sure that the fiber stub has been smoothed off. Repeat the rough polishing step until this is the case. Fine ferrule polishing will finish off the end face such that the fiber's core is easily visible with the scope and is free from all but the slightest of scratches, if not nearly perfectly smooth. We'll start by placing the rubber polishing pad on the glass polishing plate. On top of that, place a sheet of white 0.05 micron grit polishing film. Place the metal polishing disc on the film and then insert the roughly polished ferrule into the hole in the middle of the disc. While placing minimal pressure on the ferrule, move it back and forth using figure 8 pattern, repeating that pattern several times. If you observe strong scratches on the film as shown here, this means that the fiber stub has not been completely removed and therefore some additional rough polishing is needed. Repeat that process until there are no more scratches appearing when performing the fine polishing. Proceed with the fine polish, making 25 to 50 passes with the figure 8 motion. Insert the ferrule into the inspection scope, press the button to turn on the light source, and use the focus ring to bring the ferrule tip into clear view. The fiber should be visible in the center of the viewfinder and will more than likely have some relatively minor scratches and possibly some retaining compound around the edges as seen in this close-up. Continue with the fine polishing, performing 25 to 50 figure 8 passes in between inspections. As you proceed, the core will become visible in the center of the fiber and the number and depth of the scratches will diminish as shown here. For the sake of comparison, this close-up shows what the ferrule of a commercially manufactured cable looks like. It's not necessary to achieve such perfection, however, for an APU to function properly. Before proceeding with connectorizing the other end of the cable, it's a good idea to test the connector you've just done. The tool you'll be using to test the connector is a small, low-power laser light source. It may be a low-power device, but it's still powerful enough to damage your eyes. Do not look directly into the light source's output or into any optical fiber that's connected to it. Always indirectly view the light from the cable you're testing. Begin by removing the protective cover from the light source's output. Then, remove the protective cap from the ferrule you need to test and insert it into the light source. Turn on the light and observe that the unterminated fiber end is brightly illuminated, being careful not to look directly at the fiber. After the other cable end has been terminated, you'll need to test the finished cable assembly. Begin by removing the protective cover from the light source's output and turn it on. Then, remove the protective cap from one end of the cable you need to test and insert the ferrule into the light source. Observe that a bright light is emanating from the connector at the other end of the cable, being careful not to look directly into the light. Congratulations! You've just successfully built a fiber optic cable assembly.